I'm really excited to have Dr. Fred Bshe in our new podcast studio here at Sonrise, and we're not quite launching our podcast yet, but we got the gear, and we wanted to take advantage of this time where we have Dr. Bisci with us, and I'll probably refer to him as Freddie most of the time, and that's what a lot of people tend to call him affectionately. And just if you're newer to our platform or to Dr. Bisci, Dr. Bisci is a clinical nutritionist. He's spent 60 years of his life giving himself to helping people reach peak athletic performance, reach optimal health, and reverse chronic diseases through God's plan of how to heal the body. And he's been an athlete. He's done boxing, Olympic-style weightlifting, marathon running, and he's very inspirational. He's the head of the Spartan Race Nutritional Advisory. He's a great man, family man, and he really loves Jesus and really wants to see people reach their potential in God and in life. And he's been a help to me. And so actually the way we were introduced was through a mutual friend, Bishop Joseph Matera in New York City. I was in the middle of a health crisis, and I had had all sorts of tests and seen multiple doctors and specialists, and for whatever reason, they couldn't really diagnose my gut issue. And so Bishop Joe heard about what I was going through, and he got me on a three-way call with Freddie. And so over the phone, I didn't really know who Freddie was at the time. I just heard he's a guy who could help me. And I was kind of on information overload. I had been doing all this research. I've been reading too much stuff, really. And that, you shouldn't always Google your symptoms because it's it's pretty over. Yeah, it's like the rabbit hole. We don't know how far it goes. And so I was doing all this research, and I was thinking, what is this going to do? I don't know what to do. But I got his book, Your Healthy Journey, and heard his advice, and I read his book in one sitting as soon as I got it, and I was like, wow, this really makes sense. Like for me, because I had researched so much and talked to a lot of different specialists, I always was seeing like little parts of things that might help me a little bit. But once he laid it out for me, I saw like all the missing blank, because like the missing puzzle pieces were all filled in for me, and this made sense. And I didn't really want to do it because it meant changing my nutritional lifestyle and challenging my food addictions that I kind of found out that I had. I didn't realize it quite at first, but that was really the hardest part, was getting over the addiction to food, to processed food. And so anyhow, I went on his plan, and my wife Grace, after a week of not being too excited about it at first, then she started watching YouTube videos with Freddie, and she was like, wow, honey, I've been listening to Freddie, and I really connect to his heart, to his story, and I want to read his book now. And then she starts reading the book, and she's barely into the book, and she's like, if you get to talk to this man, we need to listen to what he says. And she's like, I want to do this with you. And my wife is pretty fit and in really good health. She's an optimistic person. But anyway, so she went on it with me, the plan in Your Healthy Journey, the intermediate lifestyle plan. And then she's like, Freddie's a godsend, and I think you're not only going to get better from what you're dealing with, but you're going to learn how to live in optimal health. And I think we're supposed to help people.
Exactly.
And so anyhow, one thing led to another, and he's been coaching me this whole time, and I've had a ton of progress in my gut health, and thanking God for that, and still go through some detox cycles every once in a while. But that's part of the journey.
But we got to get grace. We got to get grace to be able to give people consultations,
yes,
and get to show a lot of improvement in people without getting too deep into it.
Right. Yeah. So my wife Grace, that's what Freddie's referring to. He's going to be training her and helping her help others. But so we were just talking before we started the cameras rolling about how nice it is to meet in person, because our relationship has been 7 months old, I think. And back from January, middle of January, we started talking on the phone and had plenty of conversations as he's coaching me through this process, and then becoming friends in the process. How about that?
Yes.
And I thought, wow, we're doing this series on healing in the church. We got to bring Freddie out for this, because I think he could help a lot of people. And it turned out that it really aligned with his values and some of the things he's been wanting to do. So getting to meet in person is there's really nothing like it, is there?
No, there isn't anything like a face-to-face. You speak to a person on the phone 10 times, but you sit down with a person once, and it's, you can really look at a person and come to some kind of conclusions, you know. And once I met you, it was a lot different than speak to somebody on the other end of the phone. Now I really know who you are, and I think you have a better idea who I am, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's been a real enlightening experience being out here, meeting you and meeting Kevin and all the men in the church.
Yeah.
And your father's a blessing, you know, just to hear him pray this morning. I mean, that's an experience, you know.
Yeah.
So who knows where this is going to take us?
That's right.
I mean, you know, the sky is the limit, and I mean that more ways than one. There's a tremendous amount of potential here.
Yeah, that's right.
And whatever I can do, you know, as long as I'm still here, I mean, that's why it's a good idea if we could mentor a few people, start out with your wife, and then she could mentor other people. And it's basically, if you keep it simple, you can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
When you try to complicate it and get too scientific, a lot of people get lost in that maze between science and abstract science.
Yeah.
The human body has very specific biological design.
Yep.
It should become obvious what we should really be eating.
Yeah. So
it's simple.
Well, that's one of the things, having you out here, you did our Sunday service and you did a Wednesday night seminar and you took a lot of questions and answers, and that's dynamic. I love when you get to do that and work with people. But one thing, and in person I've picked it up even more than over the phone, but just really how you've marveled at God's design of the body. And it makes me marvel about like how amazing everything. The healing capacity. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Like,
to me, you know, I was very, very frustrated when I first started. And I mean, I wasn't getting the results that I really wanted to get. And then I was going through my experience in becoming a Christian and growing. I've always been a searching person because I had issues myself, being dyslexic and all the other things I was trying to resolve. So when I started really to study the Bible, and I had a good background in nutrition, and I started to see the connection that the scriptures had everything in it that we really needed. And then I saw in Genesis 1:29 what God wanted us to eat. It made perfect sense to me because that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to do that anyway. And then there was, what I think to be 72 places in the Bible tells you to fast and pray. And I had gotten to the point I'd say I have to try everything myself to find out the validity of it. So I started to fast. I did a lot of fasting. Then I did a couple of long fasts, and I'm not sure, 5 or 6 fasts over 30 days. I'm not really sure what it was, 5 or 6.
Right.
But to me, that was one of the fasts was a spiritual revelation to me. 38 days to fast, 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a spiritual revelation to me in that something changed me, you know. And I was asking God for answers, and He gave me the answer. Wow. And that from that time on, my focus changed from me to really search for the form of ultimate health, to get closer and closer to God, as close as I could possibly be. So then I start to really think, and I did a lot of reading, a lot of research, and then I came to a very simple conclusion, that the human body is spiritually, vibrationally induced, electrically, chemically empowered, that's our central nervous system, and biologically carried out. So I had come to the conclusion that at the top of all this was God. Gotcha. And Jesus Christ was the means for us to be connected to God. Then I always loved animals, and as I started to look around at animals, I realized that every species of animal, because I used to go to the Barrack Park Zoo, and one day I spoke to the zoologist, and I says, how do you feed all these different animals? He said, well, we study what the animals ate in their natural environment based on their biological design, and that's what we feed them. Yeah. He said, before we did that, all the animals got sick if we fed them the wrong food. So then I realized every species of animal has a species-specific diet. Animals are instinctual. God gave us dominion over all the animals. We're cerebral. We are godlike, created, not to be gods, but godlike in His image. So we can apply logic, reasoning, and all that, all the parts of our intellect that gives us the ability to make good decisions. And So I says, why don't I just stick to the type of diet there is in Genesis 1:29? I was trying to do that anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. That was the beginning of my journey. There was a lot of experience. I studied with Europeans. They were recommending plant-based diets and fasting. And once I got into that, and I really abandoned myself to the cross of Christ and decided every time I prayed that I would commit myself to live for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a blessing for me because with all the shortcomings I had and all the problems I had, there was many of them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have changed, you know. And I was really I was totally embarrassed by the fact that I was a dyslexic, I couldn't read, I had a terrible speech impediment, so I didn't really say very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, God has resolved a lot of the things, the problems I have. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm perfect. Every once in a while, I still slow my words a little bit. But it's amazing.
But you're from New York, so people like your accent
anyway.
anyway.
That guy's he's a dead-end kid of some type. But and with that being said, I really started to focus on the body's ability. I got tremendous. I really wanted to find out as much as I can about the healing capabilities that God has designed into our body.
Mm-hmm.
And now I work strictly from that. Everything I'm working from the godly principle of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
And when you leave out the processed food, you leave out foods that are detrimental to the human body, then you're actually on God's operating table. You're releasing that body to do, you know, a lot of what God meant us to do. This is a fallen environment. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to live hundreds of years. But we can get close and closer in the process of sanctification, you know, focus on the cross, letting the Holy Spirit, you know, rule our lives, and start eating the perfect diet that God meant us to eat, the biological correct diet. And when you put that whole package together, there's absolutely no two ways about it. You slow your aging process down. A lot of people that go to anti-aging doctors, they're taking testosterone, they're taking all these injections, human growth hormones, and, you know, and in some respects it doesn't help them, but it doesn't work. Nowhere near as good as you surrender to God, understand who Christ is, and then, you know, start eating and living in God's plans for physical health. Mm-hmm. What we eat, there isn't anything that has anything to do with salvation except for what Christ did on the cross. I'm not implying that if you you eat better, you know, you're going to be that you could possibly be saved without knowing and accepting Christ.
Right.
So, but food, definitely, what you put in your mouth is basically simple. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just can't eat all the wrong foods and expect to get away with it. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So when you experience eating a good diet and you get through those biological change, which I call biological healing, then you get to a level of health you just don't get sick.
Right.
I went for a long period of time, many, many years, probably 40, 45 more years. I very, very, very rarely ever had any kind of indication of being sick.
Right.
Never had the flu.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it feels like to have the flu.
Yeah, I know. I think, talking to Bishop Joe, he's been on your plan for almost 20 years now, and he said he hasn't got any cold or flu.
Yeah, he doesn't
said
get
everybody
sick.
Could be sick, and the family said
you
he
don't
got like
get
food poisoning once or something like that. But other than that, like he stays really healthy. And even just 7 months on your plan, my wife and I virtually, our allergies have gone almost down to zero.
Oh, they'll go away.
Yeah, I mean, and same, people were getting colds and flu type stuff all around us, and even though my body was still pretty deeply healing during cold and flu season, I still wasn't getting the colds or flus.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing how, like, you say a lot, it's about what you leave out in your book and when you're talking.
That's so important.
And so that's really the big, a plant-based diet and then leaving out all the processed foods. Those are your big keys for anybody,
They're all the
right?
things that we're addicted to.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember that contagion does not really work the way according to the system we've been indoctrinated into. In order for you to pick up a pathogen, you have to be creating the right internal environment with endogenous waste, so it can proliferate in there. We're exposed to bacteria all the time.
Yeah.
If you put your hand on this table, or you tie your shoelaces, or no matter what you do, you're exposed. If you looked under a microscope at all the microbes on our hands, we got microscopic bacteria on us, and it's a symbiotic relationship with the human body. We're so germ phobic now in this country. We're constantly washing our hands, and if you overdo it, it's not really that good. If you're eating a healthy diet, you're not creating the internal environment for the bacteria to proliferate, and you're not phobic about germs. You're actually like inoculating yourself. It's almost like getting a vaccination because you're healthy. The bacteria can't proliferate, and you're exposed to the germs, so you're getting the antibodies.
Yeah.
That's part of our immune system. That's why a natural immunity is far more powerful than anything else you could get from any kind of an injection.
Wow.
And that's why kids that eat a clean diet, they don't get sick. My grandchildren don't get sick.
Wow.
They purely don't get sick.
Well, it's amazing because I think, all of us as families, especially like before I started hearing what you had to say and everything, and learning a lot about this, it seemed like everybody talks about, the family's got the cold that's going around or got the flu that's going around, and almost like everybody expects like every fall and every spring or once or twice a year, every winter, that everybody's going to get it, and you got to kind of go through this cycle. But it's good for us to hear about. We don't have to expect to be sick.
When you look at real science, why during the summer, the warm weather, people do everything wrong and they don't get sick? Well, they could get sick, but they don't get as sick as they do in the winter. Why does that happen? You see, especially the young kids today, they're partying. Only the Lord knows what they're doing. They're smoking pot and doing things worse. They're partying, but they're out on the beach. They're on their surfboards. They're walking around barefooted on the beach. All this means something. But when the temperature drops down below about 50 degrees, everybody starts to sneeze. Everybody gets sick. We're getting into cold and flu season. Why does that happen? Germs proliferate more in a warmer temperature than they do in a colder temperature. Why do people get sick in the winter? Why when the weather changes from summer, go into fall, and then about this time of the year, about October, all these people that have been healthy throughout the summer and that are not eating well, they're going to start to get sick. They're going to get sinus problems. They're going to start sneezing. All these things are going to happen. Why? It's because the human body is very vulnerable to temperature. That's why in cold weather, a thin person like me, I don't really have a problem with I don't have a lot of fat on me. But when my stomach is empty, I'm perfectly warm. Once I eat the food, it's cold. Just like if you eat warm food, the radiant heat warms you up. It makes it easier for you to get warm. If you eat cold food, that's why I like to eat food at room temperature. It could make you a little colder. So when your body, when you're going from the summer into the winter, your body actually contracts on the cellular level. It really does. It contracts a little bit. So when it contracts a little bit, guess what it's doing? The endogenous waste that's in your system, it's like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. You're squeezing that endogenous waste out.
Gotcha.
And then the bacteria, which has like a symbiotic relationship with us, it's merely meant there to scavenge. It's really meant to clean us up. When you first get a little cold, the best thing to do is to drink water, back off on your food. If you could fast a day or so, get some rest. That goes right away because you're assisting the body in this healing process. But people take pills, they take all kinds of stuff, and they don't realize they're making it harder for your body to make you better.
Wow.
That's why a lot of people, when I first started, if I didn't feel good, I'd fast for 1 or 2 days, cleared it right up. Then you start to realize contagion is only half true. It's all based on the biological terrain of the human body, the condition of the host. It's like planting a seed on this table, or you plant the seed in good black soil. It's going to grow. On this table, it's not going to grow.
Yeah, gotcha.
You could sprout it by putting a jar and pouring water over it.
It's all about the environment you're giving.
So it's the same thing the way the body is. And so once you eat a clean diet, no processed food, and you eat plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables, the key, we are designed to eat fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
We are not carnivores.
Right.
We are designed to eat exactly, in my experience, to eat exactly what it says in Genesis 1:29. Of course, everybody brings in brings up Genesis 9:3. What about meat? Okay, God blessed Noah, and he released him and his family to eat meat. But it was, if I remember correctly, it was about 1,600 years from Genesis 9:3, which is about 6,000 years ago, to about 1,600 years from Genesis 1:29 to Genesis 9:3.
Mm-hmm.
According to the scriptures, everybody's a vegan.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they ate some goat products in there, cheese or something like that, but it doesn't say that.
Right.
And they definitely didn't eat any milk from a cow because there was no cows in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't getting their hands on any cow products, to my awareness. So from that period, it proves that people are living according to God's design for that 1,600 years.
And the lifespan was longer.
The lifespan.
At that
a lot of
time.
people say, "Oh, I don't believe that." Well, it's true, because I honestly believe that the way God made our bodies and the way I look at this, I believe that in the perfect environment, we were designed for the body to keep replicating itself. Yeah. I believe we were really were designed to live forever. Maybe I'm naive, but I really do believe that.
Yeah, well, I think the way God created us hasn't changed. Sin came into the world, the atmosphere changed, the curse came on the earth, and so God said our years would be limited to 120. Many people lived longer than that.
Yeah,
because like the ages trail off in that 1,600-year period you're talking about. And even after that a ways, people were still living longer. Right. So you see, though, that God's design is still hardwired in our body. The design didn't change. So you're saying we could regenerate through cycles of our aging or through even sickness and disease. Our body can keep regenerating.
Well, I see it happen over and over. You know, sometimes it is, like I shared at church, it is maybe my expectations sometimes frustrate me, because sometimes you're speaking to somebody, and you know they could definitely get better.
Uh-huh.
If they really believe it, and they hang in there as they go through this healing process. Yeah. The healing process, you just don't go from, no matter if you go to a better diet or a poorer diet, there's always, no matter which way you go, there's always some kind of a symptom.
Yeah.
But if you've been eating a diet that's, terrible or not that good, or a fair diet for a lifetime, and you go to a superior diet where you're getting close to God's biological design, your body has to go through this regenerative process where it could be a little uncomfortable.
How long does that take for people, the regenerative process?
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Some people go through it in a month, 2 months. Some people that are really sick, it takes a couple of years for them to really, really feel good. To be honest with you, I was always a very healthy person. Yeah. And on a raw diet, till I really started to really feel awesome, it took me about between 2 and 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Before I started, I felt good.
And you were a weightlifter, so you were a pretty bulky guy, right?
No, I was a big guy.
You weighed like 200 pounds, but that was like mostly
I was over
lean.
200. I'll show you a picture of me. You're not going to believe it.
It was muscle mass, though, right?
I didn't have an ounce of fat on me.
Yeah. So you were muscular, and then you went on a raw vegan. Did you start as a vegan or a raw vegan? You started...
I went right into I went from eating animal protein right into a raw vegan diet.
Okay.
I met a guy that, he didn't look healthy, but he has awesome energy. And he was a very, very humble guy. I never forget the guy.
Huh.
And he used to talk. He always never looked at you. He always kept his head down. He was, he was just a very humble person. And I was a huge guy at that time. And he was telling me that what I was doing wasn't good.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't good for your health. Meanwhile, I was looking at him. He was a toothpick. He didn't look healthy.
Yeah.
But what he said made a lot of sense. And I had a great deal of respect for him because he was really a very, very kind person.
Well, how did you... That's like so backwards. I'm listening here, and I'm thinking of our American mindset. We have like what some people call the heroic medicine mindset. Like, I want to take a pill that makes me feel better by like tomorrow or a couple of days, or I want some kind of procedure or adjustment that just makes everything better, in a really short period of time. So it sounds like we need patience if we're going to allow the body to heal naturally.
We really do. But as Christians, we have a tremendous advantage because it's in the Bible, and if we do, fully abandon ourselves to the cross of Christ, it comes to you very, very quickly. It makes you. I got convicted of a lot of things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was, it really wasn't that it was sinful. It was that it just wasn't good for me.
Right. And so you could be eating a certain diet that actually makes you feel better in the short term, but it could be hurting you in the long term. And then when you switch to a healthy diet, you might feel worse for a while, or like you said, your energy levels didn't become optimal for 2 or 3 years. And I think some people are like, well, I might try something for 2 or 3 months, but I'm not going to give 2 years. But it's like, but now you've reaped the benefits of that.
I was fascinated
for like 60 years, right? I mean,
yeah.
you've been a raw vegan for over 50 now, or
it's about 53 years.
53 years. So yeah, you had 2 years or a little more that were rough, but now you've had the last 50 that have been amazing. I mean, you've had challenges still, you've had injuries and other things, but you've reaped the benefits of, obviously, you're almost 90 years old, and you're like, you're moving around like a 40-year-old.
But, I saw the light very quickly. When I say it took me 2 to 3 years to feel that feeling that you have when you do this, that's really just amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling. I don't want to exaggerate. I don't want to call it euphoria or something like that, but it really is. I mean, you just roll out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're ready to go. You're looking to exercise. You want to do something. But me, because of so many, I've always been a searching person.
Yeah.
And I looked around. When I went to a Catholic school when I was a kid, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong people being Catholics, but it didn't do it for me, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think it was my own fault because of the type of person I was. And I was the baggage I was carrying that started when I was going to school and I couldn't read. I had come to the conclusion that I was a stupid person. I had a speech impediment that didn't help me, and I slurred my words. I sound like a dead-end kid from New York, and it was very embarrassing for me. So I didn't have good self-esteem. But that turned out to be a blessing because that's what drove me. That's what drove me to do all these things, to actually put things into to test my own self with, rather than read some book and trust what some other person did. So that's why I tried everything. I fasted. I lived on juices for a long period of time. I lifted weights. I did everything. I was a very angry person before I found God. I was really angry with God, I got to tell you the truth. I was very angry because why did that happen to me? I said, I wasn't a bad guy. Why did this happen to me? I knew some guys that were really bad people. They didn't have that problem. But that was illogical logic because I didn't understand what was happening. So what turned out to be a liability turned out to be a blessing to me because I started to try to, I tried everything. I read about different religions. I studied hypnosis. I thought maybe if I used hypnosis, it would help me. But my help came when I found out who Christ was.
That's right.
And, of course, there's always going to be bumps in the road.
Yeah.
There are always going to be bumps in the road. You just got to realize that, we are guaranteed, as Christians, we are guaranteed an eternity.
Yep.
And we're always going to be tested, and we're always going to be tempted. But testing comes from the Lord. To be tempted comes from the adversary.
Yeah.
You don't take your eye off the ball because you'll get beamed.
Yep.
That's what'll happen. Like I got hit, last year. I got hit with a line drive by a baseball and had a brain concussion. I've had a few brain concussions.
Yeah.
But, that's life, And to me,
were you at a Yankee?
I really feel like I'm blessed at that. Huh?
Were you at a Yankee game?
No, I went to watch my grandson play, and there was a game going next, playing in the other field, but they were the big kids, I was watching the little guys. I thought somebody shot me. I never saw a ball coming to me.
Oh, man, that's
and
crazy.
Everybody said they thought my head got cracked. An EMT guy said he thought my head got cracked open.
Well,
I didn't know what hit me. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it was a hard shot.
Well, it's amazing that you're with us because a lot of people think an 88-year-old that took a hard line drive to the head would maybe not be here. But you got somebody looking out for you.
You know, I told you what happened with the car. I believe God has a purpose for me.
Right, absolutely.
I really do.
And I think, you know, that comes through everything you do, is that you point people to Jesus.
I do that all the time.
People need Christ at the center of their life.
Oh, I'm in environments where,
really where
you know,
the power for change is
yeah.
at. And I think that's one of the things I had to learn through this process, and I'm sure it's probably pretty common being a part of American culture, is that, like, we have all the world's finest foods at our fingertips, all the flavors, the ingredients, you know, anything that tastes good. So when we're in this journey of wanting to pursue health, like, we really have to have we really have to have Christ as our spiritual anchor. And I think before, it's like, I don't know, you've said it before, a lot of people treat eating like it's an Olympic sport, you know, and so we're just gorging ourselves, and it's like we want to gorge ourselves, and then at the same time somehow say we're going to live a long, healthy life, and obviously our lifestyle doesn't match up to reality, to God's created order, to science. And we believe we've seen God heal many people in answer to prayer by His mercy and His grace, but He's also called us to be good stewards of health. So how would you encourage somebody that's like, I think it's almost helpful, and let you give me some feedback on this, but I think it's almost helpful to look at food sometimes as an addiction, or to say, you know what, I've got a problem with gluttony, or I've got a problem with being addicted to food, and I need Christ's power to help me. And sometimes we minimize it and go, oh, I just don't like healthy food, or, you know, I just prefer these foods. And you know, the Bible talks about food as a celebration. It talks about, like, you're going to eat the milk and honey of the promised land, and there's promises and blessing according to food. But I think we've taken that way too far as American Christians to kind of say, like, that God wants to give us whatever we want, and it's like, well, it doesn't really work that way.
No,
you know.
not at all.
So the psychological, mental, the food addiction part, the brain part, like, we really need Christ. It's not a matter of salvation. Like, if we eat a bad diet, it's not like we're going to hell. It's not
not at all.
It's not sinful in that sense.
You might get there sooner.
You might get there sooner. That's right. But in some senses, it can be sinful in the sense that we don't care about our body sometimes.
Oh yeah,
and we neglect. We become addicted to stuff, and then it's like we're looking for food to be the thing that gives us pleasure instead of Christ, instead of our relationships, instead of enjoying His creation or serving others. We're just looking forward to our next meal, and it's not blatantly as bad as, like, shooting heroin in your veins, or it's not blatantly as bad as being a chain smoker, but yet it's bad for us, and we're.
Well,
like
chronic disease is killing more people worldwide than anything else. All the wars combined.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are dying from chronic disease. All chronic disease is a lifestyle disease.
Yeah, and that's different than acute diseases.
Oh, absolutely.
But chronic disease is mainly a cause of our lifestyle. Yeah.
And, you know, if you got type 2 diabetes, I mean, you just start eating God's diet or get close to it. That goes away in every single case.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
It's all
that goes pretty
based
quick.
on inflammation. What causes all? Where are we getting all this inflammation? Why are we having inflammation, internal inflammation in our body? It's got to be what we're eating.
Basically all chronic diseases are traced back to some kind of inflammation.
I would say yes. I would say
a large majority.
I'm being conservative. I would say 85%, but I'm being conservative.
Wow.
Why, when people change? Why, when a person that's fasting, which has been in the Bible for 6,000 years,
right?
You know, why all of a sudden now science is discovering fasting, how therapeutic it is. Right. They're even telling people who have cancer, before you get chemo, fast 3 days, and get the chemo and then fast 3 days after, because it works.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of doctors tell people, oh yeah, it does work, so we'll give you more chemo. I don't really know if that's the answer.
Right.
But the key is why, and I've seen this over and over, and I've seen it happen to me. Why, when you have a problem, right, that's, you have inflammation, you might have pain, you don't have bone on bone, you have headaches, you have constipation, you have diarrhea, no matter what you have, why is it when somebody just starts drinking water, goes on a water fast, and sits back and rests, why in 95% of the cases does it go away? Here you are, you're not eating. Yeah. Other people are telling you should be eating so you don't get weak, you don't get thin, so you keep up your strength, you strengthening your immune system, you got to eat protein in the morning so your blood sugar don't go down. That's 95% nonsense.
Hmm.
Most of the people that have to eat in the morning that are told they're hypoglycemic, it's toxemia.
Huh.
They're told to eat protein in the morning, and they're eating 2 or 3 meals of animal protein meals already, and they're told to eat something with protein in the morning, and temporarily it does stop that feeling.
Hmm.
I've seen guys that are working out with weights, huge builds, can't even come through that door.
Huh.
And they're eating protein 5 times a day. They get to a point where if they don't get that morning meal quick enough, they get lightheaded, they start to sweat, and they go to the doctor. The doctor says, you got hypoglycemia. They give you the sugar glucose tolerance test. Of course you're going to fail the test.
Uh-huh.
So what happens, and then you tell them, listen, you got to try not to eat protein for breakfast. Well, I get sick, I get lightheaded, I get dizzy, I start to sweat,
Well,
and my blood sugar goes down. No, it only takes a week or two. Then they find out
yeah.
that's not the answer to the problem. That's the problem. My wife was that way. My wife, if she didn't eat breakfast,
Mhm.
she would get nervous. She wouldn't feel good. And once she didn't tell me, and she tried to skip breakfast and lunch and go on a fast. And she worked in a school. They had to take her to the nurse's office. I said, you shouldn't have tried that.
Hmm.
Then, and I'll never forget another time, I forget what the exact situation was, but they thought that her blood sugar went down. She was getting tested someplace, and I told them, no, it wasn't her blood sugar, and I told her, come on home. Now she knows that. Now she could do it. She could skip breakfast if she wants. She could skip lunch.
Yeah.
But that's as far as she's going to go, But
Hmm.
we're getting a lot of abstract scientific explanations for some things that are happening. Of course, we got the most advanced medical technology in the world. We probably have some of the best doctors in the world. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're very good in, diagnostics, emergency medicine, and surgery. But I think we're still making a lot of mistakes when we're treating chronic disease because we're treating it with medication and I would say 80% of the time a change in lifestyle would correct the problem in itself, the source of would remedy the source of the problem. If you got a problem and it's some kind of a dietary abuse or incorrect, say if somebody suffers from constipation, what I'm trying to say, and you give them a laxative, but you don't, stop the problem that's causing the constipation, you're going to give them another laxative in a 2 or 3 weeks. And a lot of doctors today, some doctors are starting to practice functional medicine, which is they're trying to get at the source of the problem. Naturopaths, to some degree, they're trying to get at the source of the problem. But in a lot of cases, they still use medication or they use other means to treat the symptom without eradicating the source of the problem.
Yeah, so you want to get to the root of it.
You want to get to the root.
So you were talking to me earlier about like migraine headaches, because I think a lot of people get bad headaches or get migraines, and you see a tie between that and constipation, right?
Yeah, I do. I always, whenever somebody comes to see me and they have migraine headaches, automatically I go back, I have to ask them the question, have you ever suffered from periodic constipation? I have never spoken to anybody who had migraine headaches that didn't say yes, sometimes in their life they've suffered from periodic constipation. Now, it could be coming from some other reasons. I don't want people to misunderstand me, think I'm saying that everything is a clear-cut issue in the human body because there's billions of variables in the human body.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have headaches just from being under stress all the time.
Yep.
If you're under stress 24 hours a day, you have anxiety, you could have headaches. The tension could create headaches, and they could get to be severe, and they could actually seem like they're migraine headaches. But true migraine headaches, just about everybody I've ever spoke to, if you get them to change their lifestyle or clean up their bowels and consistently go through that process and clean up their bowels well enough and get them to move their bowels for close to once for every meal they have, and then give it a little bit of time so the lymphatic system and the liver, the liver, if you clean out your bowels, if you have some kind of impacted bowels that the fecal material is moving through, but you got like a lining in there someplace. If you get that to move out, and then you help a person with their liver, and your body remedies itself.
What's the best way to cleanse that out? If you got, like, you think impacted fecal material, do you like juice cleansing, fasting?
You can do this colon cleanses that you could take. There's herbal things that could help you move your bowels. You could go for colonics, you know. But sometimes I told you about that girl that was really sick, and she was 18 days into a fast, and she called me and she told me she was having a baby.
That's
right?
crazy.
That was unbelievable. When I saw that, I never seen it. And the next day, she was like a totally different person. When the body had released all that stuff on the 18th day of a water fast. So.
You like juice cleanses for that too?
Yeah, juice cleanse.
Good for
well, remember about what you leave. What you leave out is the key. If you're on a juice cleanse and you're drinking juices, of course you're going to have people tell you, don't drink juices. Too much sugar. The fiber's missing. You're not having the fiber. If you're on a juice cleanse, if you're not ingesting fiber, you're not going to go. You're not going to move your bowels every day. You might go 3 times a week, or you could move your bowels every day, because a lot of people have impacted fecal material. You stop eating, you're drinking the juices, and your body starts to generate the vital force to get you to dump your bowels. I've seen people go on juice fast and say, where's all this stuff coming from? They go in the bathroom every day having large bowel movements. That was someplace in their body. Once they go through that, they feel like different people.
Yeah, it's amazing, huh? The benefits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, you stayed pretty active throughout your life, and I enjoyed sports a lot growing up, and then having kids and getting busy as a pastor, I kind of slowed down some of my physical activities. So I tried a couple of things, but I noticed going on your plan, even though I'm not really probably through all the detox cycles yet, I've started to have, on most days, I've started to have more energy, and so I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started doing body weight and dumbbell workouts, and I'm enjoying it. In fact, I feel more motivated to work out, and I don't feel gross. I realized I was probably having to push through all the processed stuff that my body was digesting before. So it was so hard to push through a workout, because
you don't feel good.
I still get tired after a workout sometimes, but it does not the same kind of tired. It feels good. And I feel motivated I never felt motivated to work out before. But I noticed as a pastor, of course, I sit around like this. I talk to people, counsel people, pray with people, study on the phone. And then in a lot of our modern jobs, if people are sitting at a desk in front of a computer, or they're just talking to people if they're in sales. And so it seems like a lot of our culture has gotten very sedentary, and people just sit around all day. So how important is, like, if people want to get healthier, how important is physical activity?
Very, very important.
Yeah.
Now I have this injury. It's not in my skeletal frame. I had an X-ray, but it's very. Just like it's this morning at the prayer meeting, I had to sit down because that whatever it was getting so tight. My leg was starting to shake, and it was shake. It was bothering me. So I sat down. As soon as I sat down, it was released. Then when everybody prayed, I felt a lot better.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
And I don't like being inactive, you know what I mean? I'm always, when it wasn't bothering me, I'm out there every single morning,
Yeah.
And I have some, and I was really, there's somebody, asked me and Rory's going to do it too, to do a long distance walk. It's a long distance walk.
Yeah.
And I could do that. I know I could do that.
Right.
But I can't do it like this, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if I get rid of this, I could, just a year and a half ago, my oldest daughter was living with us, and I took my grandson, who's a big strappy kid. I had him in a bicycle carriage. I pushed him at least 15 miles, and most of the way was running through hills and everything.
Oh, wow.
And I really wasn't doing any special training than what I normally do.
Yeah.
Which is doing my little bit of Qigong in the morning, and then I usually go out for a combination walk and run. I would run up the hills and walk down, But as far as I'm concerned, with me, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to be exercising. Unless I got some kind of I had a bad car accident. I can't get my right arm up. I might get surgery. I was thinking about it when I come out here, but I don't want to I want to be careful how I use general anesthesia because it could be a problem for a guy like me. But, I'll wait and see, and God will help me to make the decision, whatever I do.
Right.
I don't want to do anything to be a hero, to glorify myself. Yeah. What I want to do at this point at 90 years old in my life, I want to be able to inspire people to realize, hey, look at that guy. You know what I mean? That means I could do it. Maybe if I find out who Christ is and eat a good diet. And years ago, when you said you were going to eat the diet in Genesis 1:29, scientific people said you were crazy. You can't do that. That's not a good diet.
Yeah. And
turns out they're all wrong. Everybody's doing it now.
Yeah.
More people are becoming vegans. Athletes. Some of the best athletes.
Well,
bodybuilders. They say, you can't be a weightlifter and be a vegan. That was nonsense. That's nonsense. When I was in my 70s, I only weighed 145 pounds. I can't tell you how strong I was. I was really strong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's inspiring to be around you because I think, I learned a lot from you every day. I'm with you. And it's fun.
The best is yet to come for you.
Right.
I see now, over the phone, there's certain things I couldn't tell about you. Now I could tell,
Yeah.
Yeah, so forget about it. As far as this is concerned, I mean, I'm talking about the healthy journey.
Yeah.
You're in the first half a mile of a 50-mile run.
Yeah.
The best is yet to come.
That's
you just
right.
got to let your body have its way.
Yeah.
Things are going to happen. And especially from a spirit, you're going to get a lot of things that are going to try to get you off track. Say, I don't know if this is even worth the effort. Or maybe a year or two down the road when you're really doing well and, you'll be out someplace and you'll see something there that's really not good. You think you can have that now. You could have it in the beginning, but it'll take you right. It'll take you right into the trap,
Right. And, what's inspiring about being around you, too, of course, you guys get to hear a little bit of the nutritional coaching there in my journey, which has been a blessing. But what's inspirational is I think we hear all the time, at least I hear all the time from people getting older, that their pains, injuries, their lack of mobility, their lack of athletic ability is because of their age. And this is part of getting older. And being around you and even your associate Rory that helps you out with your practice and everything, all the projects.
Rory, he's 62 years old. He can go all day.
Right. And he's doing Spartan training for Spartan. He does 100. He told me every other day. 62 years old. Is that right? 62.
Yeah.
He does 100 pull-ups, 100 pistol squats on each leg. Which I can't even quite do one pistol squat all the way on each leg. And I've been doing a lot of squats lately, even with dumbbells, and so I'm getting stronger. But that's a pistol squat is hard. Only people that are at the top tier of athletic strength can do pistols. And so you do 100 pistols on each leg and then 100 burpees every other day at 62. And I don't honestly.
He's going to get better.
Right. And he's
a determined guy. He's going to get better.
I don't even know most 20 or 30-year-olds that could do that workout. So I love that you're an example, you and Rory, and I'm sure you got a lot of other examples of people that have followed your protocol. They start being able to do things that they thought were impossible. So how important is that mindset of challenging the impossible or taking risks and to yourself on this journey?
Well, I think when I found out that I was dyslexic and I slurred my words and everything like that, I had bad self-esteem. Mm-hmm. So that put me into a position where if I attempted something and I failed, it was like losing your whole identity.
Yeah.
So the mental part of all this is very, very important.
Yeah.
Anybody that runs anything beyond 30 miles, 50 miles, 75 miles, it's a mental thing.
Yeah.
And what I had found out, when you hit a certain point and your legs start to feel heavy, you think you're tightening up, if you breathe and the more you focus on it, the more it's going to happen. But if it's the mental part of it, if you're able to go through it, all of a sudden it goes away. You lose all that. People don't believe that. It don't happen. Then it'll happen down the road again. Maybe, 5 miles, 10 miles down the road. But what I found out is that what I did is that you got to make sure you're hydrating yourself. You put a little orange juice in the water. You put a quarter of a banana in your mouth. That's what I did, and it worked real well for me. You let that melt in your mouth. You don't just, you don't stop and eat a lot. because that changes everything. This way you don't even feel anything. All you feel is that a relief from some of the symptoms you were having that you felt like you're going too far. Or you let a medjool date melt in your mouth. Don't forget, when you're in the midst of exercise like that, or if you exercise very strenuously, for about 45 minutes after you do that, your body doesn't secrete insulin. That's because your body knows exactly what to do. The body knows that you push yourself hard. You exercise very hard.
Yeah.
You did something very enduring. So the body isn't going to encourage you to reload.
Yeah.
So you could reload. In other words, if you wanted to eat, if you just ran 20 miles, you could eat, theoretically speaking, you could eat 6 or 7 bananas or 5 or 6 oranges. But if you try doing that without doing anything, it's sedentary, you haven't done anything, there's a good chance your body's going to dump a lot of insulin into your system. So, because your blood sugar had went way up, so it's might overload you with insulin, so your blood sugars are going to go up, and then it's going to go down, so you're going to feel tired. But a lot of people, what they do, especially after running, they go home and make a high-protein drink. That's the wrong thing to do. Your body don't need protein at that moment. It needs sugar.
Yeah.
And, of course, now with the ketogenic diet, they say, ketones, fat will not work. I would never do that, based on what I know. Fat is not going to do for you after you exercise like that and you're strenuous. It's not going to get into your system the same way. So what you need is you need something to restore your sugar levels. Maybe potatoes will do it because they're high in the glycemic index. But there's nothing better than fruit because it's part of God's design in Genesis 1:29.
Yeah.
But if you try that and you haven't been eating good and you're toxic, you're going to get bloated. You're going to have all the reactions that people are told that it's the fruit, it's the sugar in the fruit. No, it's because you're toxic. It's because the fruit is very cleansing. It provides a lot of energy with very little digestion, so it works very efficiently.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when people are being told, you're hypoglycemic, you don't feel good in the morning.
Yeah. Well, a
Not
lot
the
of times,
case.
you told me let's look at the video rather than look at just like a picture.
Right.
Because some people are trying to solve like you said, like if you look at the picture, like maybe if you eat fruit after you ate a bunch of protein right after you worked out, it's going to mess with your body chemistry. You're not going to feel good, and then people will go, well, it's the fruit. Well, it's like that's looking at the little picture. It's because of when you're eating it, what you're eating it with, after physical exercise, or, at the wrong, or maybe it's the wrong time. But you want to look at. You've always talked about the video, so you want to look at the whole. We're talking about fixing the whole picture of your health over the long term, not looking at just solving one little issue temporarily that you're going through, and that can be different, right? I mean, it's different to solve the whole big picture than
you want to treat the body as a whole, as a full biological organism.
Yeah, because all the systems of our body have an effect on one another anyway.
They're
don't they?
interrelated.
Yeah.
Sure they are.
Right. So we want to fix one thing, but it might not be resolving the underlying issue that affects the whole system. I
remember when I was, I always liked to eat. I still like to eat. What I mean? So when I was a kid, I always wanted. We didn't have a lot of money, and we ate a lot of polenta, which is actually cornmeal. But one thing I got to say, we ate. No matter what we ate, it was clean because there was no chemicals around. There wasn't a lot. I remember going to. There were no supermarkets, and we went to a little local neighborhood store, and they had everything. All the vegetables and everything was out in big bushel baskets, them long cone-shaped bushel baskets. And there would be beets in there, be carrots there, be celery, be all kinds of stuff. There would be lettuce there. And it had dirt on it. I never forget that. The beets had dirt on it because there was a lot of farms in Staten Island. And everything was grown locally. So whatever you ate was fresh, and everybody went to the store every day. We didn't have refrigerators. We had an ice box.
Yeah.
Everything went on an ice box. You had a guy came with ice every day, put ice in there, and you put your food in there.
Yeah.
So the food had to be fresh every day. So no matter how poor you are, no matter what you ate, it was relatively good food.
Yeah.
It was good.
And now, a lot of impoverished neighborhoods the cheap food is the processed food.
Right.
So
that's why
people buy that stuff up. Yeah.
we very rarely got sick when we were young. And when we did get sick, my mother knew what to do for us, you know. Well, you know what she did?
Yeah.
She gave us a laxative, stop eating, you didn't eat for a day or two.
Uh-huh.
Gave us a laxative, told you to lay down, gave you water, or gave you broth. She would make broth.
Uh-huh.
And we got better right away.
Yeah.
The next day, she'd throw
I
you
love
out of the
that.
house.
So you said you still enjoy eating. Do you miss cake sometimes, or do you miss cookies, or do you miss some of those foods you used to eat?
No more. I mean, if I go to a good restaurant and they got carrot cake, I'll eat it, but I have no problem with it.
Yeah,
but
if it's a
what
raw
I started
carrot
to
cake.
say, I remember, you know, when we were young, and we ate fruit, but I mean, I used to love to eat. My mother used to make. We had a big family. My mother used to make polenta, which was cornmeal,
Yeah.
but she used to make it like a cake. There was a way to cook the polenta that if you did it the way she did it, you know, you take the cold water, you pour the cornmeal in it, and you had a wooden spoon, and you kept stirring it while you were pouring it in. A lot of people make polenta, they bring the water to a boil, and it lumps up. So you and you didn't put no butter, no milk, no nothing in it.
Huh.
So you just keep stirring it, right?
Yeah.
And when it got so thick that you could hardly stir it, my mother had arms like a guy because everything was so laborious.
Yeah.
So then you turn the gas off, and you let it sit for about 5 minutes. Then you turn the gas all the way up, and then you would hear it pop. It was like it was starting to burn the bottom in the pot. You turn it all the way up. Then you turned it. You took a wooden board, you turned it over. You put a towel on the pot. You hit the pot, and it came out like a big cake, the shape of the pot. My mother used a huge pot.
Yeah.
And it came out. So then you could cut it up, put tomato sauce on it. You could put beans on it. You could put vegetables on it. And then you could put a little bit of cheese on it, Parmesan cheese.
Yeah.
And it was delicious.
Huh.
Then the next morning, we would slice it. And it was cold. You slice it, take a nice big thick slab,
Yeah.
about that thick, and you would fry it in butter.
Huh.
And then you'll put an egg on it, fry an egg, put an egg on top, then put Parmesan cheese on it. I'm telling you, that was delicious.
Oh, yeah.
It was delicious.
So your mom could
So
cook.
it was poor man's food.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, we ate eggs, and there were times when we were growing up that you would, my mother used a cast iron skillet to fry foods, and we would fry a piece of meat. We didn't eat a lot of meat because we didn't have the money, so we'd eat meat in the morning. So I try all that,
Yeah.
eating those things in the morning. There is nothing like letting your body adjust to eating fruit in the morning or having a juice.
Yeah.
There is nothing like it, but you have to adjust to it.
Right.
The only problem with eating this way is that you never get that emotional, psychological, stick to the ribs, full belly feeling that deals with psychological hunger. Hunger, there's a major psychological component to hunger. That's why we're stuck in what we are. It's very similar to being addicted to drugs, but you have to eat every day.
Right. Well,
How do you stop change from meal to meal, day to day? That's the problem.
well, our taste buds start changing though, don't they?
They
I mean,
do.
after a while,
But you have to
once
leave.
you
That's
pull
why
it
you have
out,
to leave it
yeah.
out.
Yeah. It
If
takes
you
a little
moderate,
while.
no, you don't lose your addiction.
Yeah, but it's amazing how you start to enjoy
Oh yeah.
more simple, like just you enjoy a piece of fruit, or like I never. I mean, you talked to me a year ago, and there's no way I would have told you that I'm craving salad. You know, like I mean, I ate a little salad here and there, but now I have salad twice a day. If I go out to eat it, like say, like I get some Thai food that's kind of pretty much within my parameters, you know, some veggies and rice and stuff, and I don't have a salad for 1 or 2 meals.
You don't feel right.
I'm like, Grace, tomorrow we got to make big salads. I'm just
know.
craving a good
That
salad
see,
right
people
now.
don't
It's
realize that.
amazing.
You know, John, I've eaten a lot of salad in my life.
Yep.
I mean, I might have eaten a million salads.
Right.
But I look forward to a good salad.
Yeah.
And when I make a salad at home, I mean, I make it so it's really, really appetizing.
Yeah.
You really enjoy
What's your
it.
favorite thing to put in a salad?
I put romaine lettuce, celery, bell pepper, cucumbers. So I go to a local health food store. I put some bean sprouts in it. I put some avocados in it. I might put some different types of seeds in it. Once in a while, I put some raw sauerkraut in it. But your plain simple salad, and I love tomatoes.
Yeah.
And I always put a lot of tomatoes in.
Yeah.
But I just make a big salad.
What do you do for dressing usually?
Sometimes I use extra virgin olive oil, or I use a little bit of coconut vinegar. And sometimes what I do is I mash up an avocado. I like tahini, sesame tahini, and it's very, very simple. I just put some water in a dish. I put some lemon juice in it. I take the tahini, which is we got the best type of tahini, and I put a little bit of Himalayan sea salt or that Australian salt. I just mix it up with a spoon. I don't have to put it in a blender, and I make it nice, and I make a lot of it, and I pour it all over the salad.
Yeah.
Then it's a meal because you're getting plenty of protein from the sesame tahini, and it's delicious. Tahini dressing is actually really, really delicious.
Yeah.
And sometimes I make wraps. I take collard greens, like I think we were talking about that the other day. Or I take cabbage. I take a big head of cabbage. I cut it down the middle, and I make cups out of the cabbage. It's round.
Right.
And then I fill it. I chop up vegetables, put avocado in it, or put tahini in it, and use Himalayan sea salt, make it thick, and you put it in, and you eat it like at the cup. You know, you just eat it the way it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things you could eat.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, oh, gee, I don't know if I would like that. I didn't think I would ever like some of those things. But I mean, I look for, if you said, Freddie, I'll give you special dispensation from God. You could go back to eating those other things and nothing's going to happen. I wouldn't do it. I don't have a desire to.
Right.
And sometimes I'm sitting at the dinner table and there's somebody eating something there that, you know, I look at it. And, I mean, I don't say, I wish I could eat that. I say, oh my goodness, I wish they would stop eating that, you know.
Yeah.
So, but what are you going to do? That's the way it is.
Right.
I think I believe the best way is to encourage people, and I do that within my own family, friends, and socially. You don't really, you don't want to be evangelist when it comes to food.
Right.
You don't want to try to force something down somebody's throat because it becomes very annoying.
Well, I think your example speaks louder than your words do, right?
I think that's the answer.
When people start, not only the example of what you're putting in your mouth, but then also the fruit of your energy and your health. When people see you moving around and active and a sharp mind, you know, it's like that's the best that's better advertisement than our speech.
I think if you show a little bit of humility too, you know, don't say I told you so.
That's
or
very important.
Like that.
Right.
I think people really, really get it.
Yeah.
And if somebody brings it up, you know, you talk about it, you know.
Right. I think you're good at that. You're good at drawing people into the conversation and just, you know, setting a good example. So it's not a dogmatic thing. You know? Yeah. Yeah, it's not a dogmatic thing where you're trying to force your diet on everybody else.
I know that don't work.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, you know.
Right. And, I mean, not everybody that follows your plan goes total vegan, and not everybody goes total raw.
Well, I have no problem with people eating animal protein so long as they get healthy. If they're getting healthy, they're eating animal protein every other day, and it's grass-fed or it's organic, fine with me.
Yeah. How important is the organic foods? And
it's really important. And a lot of people say, has that have any validity? Yes, it does. It has a lot of validity. And with the animal, don't forget, you're ingesting the nitrogenous byproducts of the animal. So that comes along with the animal protein. But if you're eating an animal that's had antibiotics, hormones, whatever, and they were eating chemicals that were on the grass, that they were eating grazing on grass that had Roundup in it, you could get cancer from all that type of stuff. So I tell people, and of course, there are people that just don't have the resources. They don't have the money. So, I mean, what do? You tell people they could eat the wrong foods, or tell them they could eat the foods that are not organic? I tell them they could eat the foods that are not organic because they don't have the money. But I don't make it, I don't give people the impression that it's the same thing. It's definitely not the same thing. And people come to realize that after a while. Once you get used to eating organic, especially organic fruit, I mean, anybody that's ever eaten an organic apple, a good, fresh organic apple, and you eat a regular apple, forget about it. It's no comparison. When I eat a regular apple, it tastes to me like I'm eating a candle or something like that. It doesn't have, and you eat a fresh, organic apple, you know, I mean, it's not, and that apple pops when you bite into it. Oh, my, there's nothing like it.
It seems like organic produce is coming down in price, though. Like it's becoming more popular.
I think it's become more popular.
Because I mean, I'm sure it was more expensive even when you started trying to eat clean years ago. It was
when I
probably
first got married, you know, we weren't floating in money, and then when I started giving nutritional consultations, I started charging $20. And the great thing about it is that my diet was just like like the intermediate level diet. I mean, everybody. You know, it was working, and people were telling people at how well it worked, you know. And
Yeah.
at $20, a lot of people walk in and they didn't even want to do it. They just want to hear you talk,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Then I got very expensive. I went up to $35.
Yeah.
But that's a long time ago. But it's
Well,
the proof is in the pudding. Anybody
Right.
that really tries it, I haven't seen anybody that tries my intermediate level diet, truly gives up the processed food and tries it and gives a little
Yeah.
bit of time, that didn't get some benefits to one degree or another. Most people get dramatic benefits.
yeah.
So,
Well, I'm encouraged. Like, I mean, I'm not an expert, but the limited research and studying I've done is like, it seems like a lot of different groups are starting to dialogue a little bit more than they used to, and hopefully that keeps developing, where like traditional medicine is interacting with natural doctors, or even hearing psychologists and people dealing with mental health are looking at nutrition now and the effects that, you know, our diet and our lifestyle has on our mental health.
it had to happen,
And-
though, because
yeah.
more and more people
Mhm.
were looking for other answers, you know.
Right, but it seemed like some of these, you know, you got experts in these different fields and they don't talk to each other. It seems like the people that suffer the most from not wanting to learn from each other are the patients and the people that have the issues. But as people start, hopefully, you know, and I'm hoping in the church too, that we start talking about this more, because, you know, I think for me, it's like Christ is revealed as our Savior, the Savior of the whole world. And, you know, through simple confession of your sin and faith in what Christ has done through his death on the cross, his burial and resurrection, like that's the power of the gospel. That's the power of good news, that when we believe that Christ died for us, our whole world can be changed. And if we live by that power, he has the power to heal us, to sanctify us. And so I want to see Christ at the center of people's life. But it seems like, for whatever reason, we've talked about it a little bit while you've been up here, just as we're driving around and interacting, that the church, you know, if I think of a vegan, or I think of somebody that's eating plant-based or really healthy, think of somebody that's more into like Eastern mysticism, the New Age,
Yeah, that's
into
the
like
problem.
earth worship, tree hugging, and no
Yeah.
offense to vegans or people
Yeah.
of other religions, right? I mean, we love all people. We think Jesus. I mean, I'm convinced Jesus is the only way, and I want everybody to experience Jesus as I have, because it's been the most transformational thing in my life to meet him and become a new person in him. But I think it's kind of sad in a sense that it's like that. In the church, it's so uncommon, and I think I'm thankful for your example. I'm hoping that you get a lot of opportunities to talk to churches and pastors and leaders, and because we have a lot of influence with people, and now with social media we have even more influence. You know, we can do a talk like this, we can put your videos up there, and people will watch them all over the world over the next few years, as they go on YouTube and Facebook and whatnot. But why do you think that the church doesn't talk about health a lot? It seems like we talk a lot about the spirit. We talk a little bit about our relationships, our emotions, but we pretty much don't talk about health, having a healthy body at all, almost.
Well, I mean, the reason for that, I think, is that some of the leaders in the church, they just haven't had this experience themselves. I mean, they're great men of God. They're preaching the word of God. They know who Jesus Christ is. But I seen pastors that were, 300 pounds up there and had all kinds of health issues.
Yeah.
I mean, the science is out there. Most of them are intelligent, spirit-ful people. Most of them are intelligent with a good education.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look around you.
Right.
I mean, read another book on how to get healthy with nutrition, by following the right type of a diet.
Uh-huh.
But I think, don't forget, when we become Christians, everybody becomes a Christian has some kind of baggage. Most everybody. I would say everybody, but I don't want to, go too far. So they come in, they have some kind of issues.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. So they come in, they're looking for miracles in their life. But not everybody's looking to come into the church and make sacrifices. They're not ready to give up something. They're looking for a miracle. And they come into the church, they get saved.
Yeah.
And some people stop doing drugs. They stop doing a lot of things. But a lot of them are not ready to change their diet.
Yeah.
Because they've been eating the same things every day since they were a kid. And then the Bible says that everything is good if it's sanctified by the word of God. So people think that means everything.
Uh-huh.
That means McDonald's, But when it's sanctified by the word of God, that means they're talking about Genesis 1:29 and possibly some of Genesis 9:3. They're not talking about 1 Timothy 4:3-5, which has nothing to do with diet. It has to do with thinking you're saved by what you eat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we did a series on 1 Timothy. Yeah,
So
everything that God made, Paul said, don't let people forbid you to eat anything that God made, but it didn't mean that you should eat anything that man made, because we took a lot of stuff God made and we tweaked it, we manipulated
makes
it.
You sick.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, everybody.
Inside or outside the church.
Yeah, no matter how much you eat, even if you are eating, you go, well, I really shouldn't have eaten that much ice cream, or I shouldn't have had that much pizza, or I don't feel good today because and we know, you're exactly right. We know, like you probably said before, right? If you point to somebody and they're eating a Big Mac and fries and a big Coke, from McDonald's, and you say, hey, is that healthy for you? They'll go, well, no, it's not healthy for we. Yeah. Because we're cerebral, right? Like you're always saying, we get addicted to the food.
But listen, we cannot, there's a major psychological component to hunger. You cannot deny that some of the worst foods for our health is the most delicious.
Yeah.
No, there's no denying it.
Yep.
I mean, you take Haagen-Dazs, you take some delicious form of ice cream. I mean, it is delicious, but it's definitely not good for you. Is it pleasurable? Yes. But that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Some of the things we're eating are very pleasurable. Mm-hmm. That's part of the emotional, psychological addiction.
Yep.
But so we're addicted to it. Our taste buds have been perverted. But once you change to a healthy diet, I'm talking about God's plan for us, the diet that's the ideal diet for us biologically. Mm-hmm. Once you change and get to it, there's a tremendous amount of pleasure in what you eat. Yeah. Like this morning, we went to that restaurant. I really, really enjoyed the food that they had there. We had a big platter of food, and they brought us an avocado. Normally, I wouldn't eat an avocado on top of the fruit, but I did because I wanted to be gracious and partake in the fellowship we were having. I felt fine. Yeah. It didn't do anything to me.
Yeah.
Now, if you take a person that was just getting into this, if they ate the avocado on top of the fruit, they would have a little bit of gas, a little bit of bloat. But it doesn't bother me. Now, if I was training to run a marathon, then I wouldn't eat a fat on top of a sugar.
Yeah.
Because my body would have to work a little bit harder. But most people don't care about that.
So when people are doing physical training, when is the best time to work out? Like, should you? Because some people, it seems like they go drink a big protein shake, they take a special energy drink, and they do all this stuff right before they're working out. But is it actually better to wait till after?
Even when I was training very heavy with the weights, and I lifted some pretty heavy weights, I devised a special way of training I called the overload system. I did partial movements. We trained in a very primitive way. It was out in an old garage. It was like a barn. And, everything we made was the most primitive way. So I always worked out on an empty stomach, and then I ate something. And when I was training with the weights, I didn't know any better at the time, so I always went in, I always had a piece of meat. I mean, we didn't have any protein powders. The only thing that was around then was Knox gelatin, which is not good for you. Yeah. I mean, there was one of the guys that worked with that was the heavyweight champion of the world, representing the New York Barbell Club. He used Knox gelatin as a source of protein. He got very sick. I mean, he was a big guy, but I think the Knox gelatin is, it's made from all inferior, made from hides and all kinds of different stuff. So, then when I really got wise to what I was doing, I always ate fruit, no matter what, no matter how far I ran. I used to do 20-mile training runs. Yeah. Whenever I run, it was either juice with fruit in it or it was fruit. I like fruit. I would sit down, eat as much fruit, grapes, mangoes, if it's the summer. I love that stuff. Yeah. I would eat a lot of it right after the run. Never had a problem with it, my blood sugar going up and down. Yeah. But if I haven't done anything, I haven't been training, and you eat that same amount of fruit, there's a good unless you eat lettuce or celery with it, or you eat a little bit of something to slow it down, your blood sugar is going to most likely go up and down. So your body's, you got to get a handle on how your body works. Everybody's a little bit different.
So sometimes when people have fruit, they should eat a little lettuce or celery with it?
Or it stabilizes the sugar. If you are the type of person that's sensitive to the sugar in fruit, after a while you don't get sensitive to it.
Right.
But I like to do it anyway.
Yeah. What do you do when you're doing marathons? Do you take a little bit of juice, or do you put, like you said, you put banana in your mouth? Did you mean like while you're in the middle of your run? Do you need it, or would you go on a whole run on an empty stomach?
On a full marathon? Well, unless you know somebody that's going to meet you along the way and give you some orange juice and water or some dates.
Yeah.
But most all the marathons, except one time, my wife met me and gave me some, gave me some stuff. One time, I was in. I volunteered for the Achilles Track Club to train with somebody that had a handicap and then run with them through the marathon. So I was gonna. I trained with this young woman that had a problems with her arm. She had a birth defect with her arm, and she was a very gifted runner, and she was a young woman, and I was about 71. It was, for me to keep up with her, I knew it was going to be challenging. So I was looking forward to the challenge. So at the last moment, they said, no, we're switching the person you're running with. They gave me some kid from Chicago that was in a wheelchair, and he was a pineapple. He didn't listen. I told him, when we come down off the Verrazano Bridge, don't let the wheelchair run wild. Don't just let it go, because I'm going to have to sprint. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to sprint about a mile, and I don't want to do that in the beginning of the marathon. He didn't pay attention to anything I did, and I knew he wasn't trained. I knew that he wasn't going to be able to do it. You're not supposed to push the person. You're just supposed to accompany them and advise them. So when we got to the middle of the bridge, he just lets his wheel, he just went. So I just had to I ran to keep up with him. I got very annoyed with him. So by the time we got to 4th Avenue, it was about the 4th mile, he couldn't move. He was finished. His arms were exhausted. I said, I told you not to do that, He didn't even answer me. So I said, I'm going to have to call for the pickup van. I don't want to do that. I said, well, we just can't sit here. Either get moving, or I'm going to start pushing, or I'm going to call for the pickup van. You're not supposed to push him. So I figured if I push him, he might be able to get a bit of a rest and get going. So I started to push him, and I really... he wasn't a pleasant person to try to help, I got to be honest with you. He was kind of a nasty guy, So I pushed him up to about past the 20th mile, Then he said he wanted to try to get himself to go across the finish line, which he did, He crossed the finish line. Then they were supposed to pick him up. Somebody was supposed to pick him up. I ended up pushing him all over New York City to find the people that he was supposed to meet. And the kid, he wouldn't tell me anything. So finally I told him, I says, listen, you're going to have to get a cab. I mean, it was like 6 o'clock at night. I was with this guy all day. We had finished a long time ago. I said, I'm going to leave you here. So finally, luckily, they were looking for him, and the guy came with a pickup van. They picked him up, and the guy was driving, the people that they came from Chicago with. And the guy that was picking him up, and he said to me, how'd you make out with him? I said, what do you mean? He says, nobody wants to be around him. He says he's a very sarcastic and type of guy. So, and then I ran home and got something to eat. I wanted to eat something,
So you went very long distance on an empty stomach. So you go very long distance on an empty stomach. I want to ask you one final question.
Well, after a marathon, you're ravenous usually,
I want to ask you one final question. It's kind of got two parts. If somebody's listening and they're like, wow, I think people should check out your book, because that comprehensively lays out just like the basic plan you'd put anybody on that wants to optimize their health or recover from a chronic illness. But if you say, okay, somebody's listening and they're like, what's one thing I could do to start getting healthier today? Like without even reading the book or even agreeing to go on a whole plan. What's one piece of advice would you give them spiritually, and what one piece of advice would you give them like nutritionally with their diet or their lifestyle?
The most important thing of all in my mind is to find out who Christ is and accept him as your Lord and Savior. That's the number one, everything. Even if you don't change your diet. If you said to me, what's more important, that you change your diet and become super healthy, or if you find out who Christ is? Forget it. Then I'll say, forget about the diet. If you're going to make a pick, find out who Christ is. But if you could, of course, I want you to do both. Find out who Christ is and change your diet. The number one most important thing that Rory and I tell people about where they start off is leave out processed food. And if you can't leave it all out, of course, if you're smoking, you're doing drugs, stop. We go right down the laundry list. Stop doing drugs, stop smoking cigarettes, stop drinking alcohol, stop drinking coffee, and get into real food. Then if you leave out the processed food, you're going to get health. If you did that and even continue what you're eating and don't eat processed food, your health is going to improve dramatically.
How do you define processed food for people that are...
Anything comes out of a box, a can. The majority of the food in the supermarket is processed. You got to take freshly prepared whole foods, fruits and vegetables. And if you're eating, say if you're eating pasta, okay, that's going to come out of a box. So you get a whole grain pasta, you get a brown rice pasta, and you eat that with a salad and cooked vegetables. If you're eating something that's processed in a way of like brown rice or pasta, of course you drink salad with it. If you have a juice first, it's kind of like the antidote before the problem. But that's good food. If you're eating some cooked food, say you're eating, if you're eating 80% raw and 20% cooked, you're going to do fabulous. And you're eating a little bit of animal protein every other day, you're going to do fabulous. Can you leave out the animal protein and get enough protein on a vegan diet? Of course you can. All kinds of athletes are doing that now.
Yeah.
Everything is in degrees, Yes. Go right down to...
Step by step. It's a journey.
Huh?
It's a step by step. It's a journey.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And, of course, you need somebody. It's always good to have a partner that's encouraging you.
Yeah, big
time. If you're a married man or a married woman and your husband's telling you, oh, what do you need that nonsense for? I'll tell you a story that was a pretty amazing story. I met a woman once, and she was just the nicest person you ever want to meet. And she was absolutely beautiful to look at. But she was overweight. She was maybe about 20 pounds overweight. And she was a real good person, but she had anxiety. And for some reason or other, her self-esteem was not that good, which was very hard to understand because she was really a beautiful girl to look at. So she came to me, and I changed the diet, and she lost the weight very, very rapidly, and she really looked terrific. And she didn't get too thin, but she was always worried about something. She didn't have great self-esteem, She really wasn't secure. And she had a nice child, and her husband was a great guy. He was a construction worker. And she had a part-time job because the kid was in school. Then one day she called me up, and she was crying. Oh, Freddie, I don't know what's the matter. I don't feel good today. I'm very upset. I said, what's the matter? She said, I don't know. I just don't feel good about myself. Did you eat? Did you do something wrong? No, I don't mean physically. I said, well, what happened? She says somebody told her at work that she didn't look good. She looked terrible. I says, what? That don't make sense to me. So I told her, listen, you go home tonight. Before you go to bed, ask your husband what he thinks of the way you look. He said he loved her just the way she was. He didn't want to change anything. Yeah. So then I thought about it, and I said, wait a minute. So I called her up at work, and I'm talking to her. I says, is everybody at work telling you don't look good now? She says, this one girl that's a friend of mine, she's my supervisor. I said, oh, really? I says, what does she look like? Oh, she's not a bad-looking person. And I said, no, how tall and heavy, how heavy is she? Oh, she's about 5'1". She weighs over 200 pounds. I said, listen, that woman, she's not comfortable with what you look like.
Right.
You're a threat to her image.
Yeah.
She's, 5'1" and over 200 pounds. I'm not knocking. That's not, whatever people weigh is not my business. But I knew what was happening there.
Yeah.
And after that, she got the message there. There was a little jealousy there for sure.
Yeah, the mindset has makes a huge impact.
She was
we
really
compare
getting
ourselves,
to it.
or
she was thinking about leaving the job. Don't leave the job.
Right. So we need. That's why having a coach, having an encourager.
She's a nutritionist today
is a big deal. Oh wow!
Right down south.
So now she's helping others. That's awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you for your time today, Freddie. Every time I talk to you, I learn more, and I have a good time, and I love. You probably got stories that could keep us here
I got stories
for weeks on end.
I'm a storyteller.
I love it. I love the stories. Yeah. So it's amazing all the things you've been through and all the people you've helped. So thanks. I hope
plus
this is
life, all
helpful.
The things I've been through in life, because the way my life, the way my life was going like this till God got me on the right journey.
That's right. So if people want to connect with you more or get your book or advice, it's yourhealthyjourney.com?
Right.
.org. Okay. yourhealthyjourney.org. Okay, that's an important ending there. .org. All right. Well, God bless you. Thanks for tuning in today, everybody.